Hello, I'm James and this is the Winging It Travel Podcast. In 2023, I spent a year travelling the world with my girlfriend Emma. Join me as I take a look back over our epic trip and remember to like and subscribe to keep up with our adventures. In today's video, after completing our European interrailing trip, we flew into Turkey. We spent a week visiting Ankara, Cappadocia and Istanbul. Let's get stuck in. The capital city of Turkey is Ankara and we arrived into the capital at midnight. We took a taxi to our hostel for $18 for 30 kilometers and it seemed like there are a few hostels to choose from in the city, but we booked in at Deep's Hostel 2 for €28 a night. The night before we didn't get to bed till at least 1 a.m, but we were woken up early to the sound of the call to prayer. This is now reminding us we're in a different stage of our trip now, but felt excited to adapt to a slightly different culture. Luckily I had my earplugs in which took the edge off the sound, and it was a mild sunny day, and after a brief stop in Coffee Lab for breakfast and coffee, we made our way to Ankara Castle. We noticed that despite being the capital city, Ankara doesn't seem to be very touristy at all. And it's free to explore the grounds of the castle, and we had some great views over the city. Once we had enough of the views, we walked down to the Museum of the Anatolian Civilization. The entrance fee was €3.50 each, and the exhibits cover prehistoric and historic eras, with some artifacts dating back over 11,000 years. After spending a couple of hours there, it was time for another coffee stop at Crikey Cafe for a coffee and a brownie. They love a key in this shop. Once refreshed, we walked back to the bustling area near our hostel and went to a Lord of the Rings themed cafe and bar called Cafe Orta Dunga, apparently Turkish for Middle Earth, but this reference is totally lost on me. We ate falafel, burgers and chips. We had one last morning in Ankara as our bus to Göreme is at 12 p.m, so first coffee, and we went to a local cafe called Kakula Cafe, very modern and trendy here. Bus tickets to Göreme cost €14 each, and once we got to the bus terminal we were a bit unsure what platform to get, but our ticket said platform 6, but there was 3 people making sure we got the right bus as the bus did arrive a little bit late. The 3-hour journey was very pleasant, we even got free drinks and snacks and had some great views along the way. My first lesson I learnt here is that a little bit of Turkish does go a long way, and people really appreciated me trying to speak their language and ask some questions about our bus. Göreme is where you do your hot air balloon ride for Cappadocia, so arriving into the town, it's hard to ignore the contrast to Ankara. The landscape is very unique with houses and hotels carved into the rocks. Even though this is March, which is very early in the season, it's much more touristy than Ankara. We're staying at the Kookaburra Pension, which was €81 for 3 nights, which included a double room with a delicious breakfast and an amazing view. One of our aims at the start of this trip was to do a hot air balloon ride in Cappadocia, and we knew it had to be at sunrise, so we checked into the hostel and met Omer, who was happy to organise everything for us. Within minutes of arriving at the hostel and checking in, he booked us into a hot air balloon ride the very next morning and a day trip around Göreme, and here are the details. The balloon ride will cost you €130 each. That will include a little breakfast, pick-up transport, the actual hot air balloon ride, a little mock champagne at the end, and transport back to the hotel. And we booked the red tour, which is €40 each, and this will be a nice little day tour around the town. After the admin was completed, we walked around town and got a coffee at Oze Cafe. Then we walked to the very popular sunset viewpoint. It cost €1 to enter the area, very reasonable given the views, and this was just absolutely sensational. Look at these colours, views of the whole town of Göreme. It really was a bit dreamy, nice weather, got some great photos and some videos. Let's enjoy more. After the sun had set, we walked back down into town and had dinner at the Anatolian kitchen. I had chicken skewers and Emma had falafel and chips. Bed early for a really early alarm call for the hot air balloon ride in the morning. This is a 5 a.m. start and the weather was looking perfect, and we're up and about ready for a 5:40 a.m. pickup. And if you want to see more about this experience, I've actually published a whole video on it, which I have linked in the description below, so check out that for more. But as you can see, it was well worth the money. To finish on that, we were very lucky as this was only the second ride going up that year, and they had to cancel a lot of trips previously, so you do have to be wary of the weather conditions, that if you do book a trip in for hot air balloon ride, it can be cancelled on the day of. After the balloon trip, we had a brief stop at the hostel for a shower and breakfast before getting collected again at 9:30 a.m. for our tour of Göreme. And Mehmet, who's the person who picked us up, really loved me trying to converse in Turkish. He really appreciated the effort. And we picked up the rest of the group and we were on our way. The itinerary was the Open Air Museum, Love Valley, Ürgüp, and a pottery museum. Like the Krypton factor. After a long but fantastic day of sightseeing, we experienced our first clay pot dinner. This traditional dinner is meat and vegetables cooked in a sealed clay pot, and as you can see here, they bash the pot and it all comes spilling out onto your plate in front of you, ready to be eaten. Quite hot though, but very delicious. To prove my point of earlier, we got up next morning to watch the sunrise for all the balloons that were going up that day, but they all got cancelled due to weather, so we felt very lucky we got ours in the day before. And then our first stop of the day was of course another coffee, so we went to King's Coffee, where Emma tried a traditional Turkish pistachio coffee. This contains no caffeine. Coffee in Cappadocia, Turkey. Looks unbelievably strong, this. Let's give it a taste. That is super strong, expected from Turkish coffee, but I love it. Cheers. On our last day, we walked around the outskirts of town, around the back of the sunset point. Finally back up to Sunset Point to have a final look at this incredible landscape. And then finally went to a restaurant called Fat Boys for dinner, where we sampled another vegetable casserole. The next morning we're taking a flight to Istanbul, which will be our last part of this episode. and we took a taxi from the airport to the hotel in the old town, which cost €30 as we arrived in, and we're staying at the Happy Sweet Boutique Hotel, who had a very friendly owner. We had lunch at a local restaurant called Istanbul Anatolian Cuisines, and it was here where my love affair started with baklava, as the owner kept coming back to give us more as we stayed for tea. And although Ramadan had actually started at this point, restaurants here were still open and serving people food. And we walked along the boardwalk by our hotel, which was a beautiful afternoon with clear skies and a lot of people out enjoying the weather and the views. Our hotel was right next to the Blue Mosque, although sadly closed for renovations, and Hagia Sophia Mosque too, which we did visit, and this was free. And you can enter there, take your shoes off, enjoy the marvellous architecture inside. It really was a sight, and I love sitting on the carpet just reflecting a little bit. And then for dinner we went to Three Partners Cafe, and the server was from Afghanistan, and he kept calling us boss, which I liked. Again, giving us more baklava after the dinner. Unbelievable service, unbelievable food, great prices, and a great vibe. Thanks, dude, for hosting us at your restaurant. Next day, we are visiting the very trendy area of Moda. This was a recommendation to us by one of Emma's friends who is from the city. And we took the metro there and had a little bit of an issue getting the travel card, but went to the desk for help. One card is 50 lira, and the journey to Moda is 17 lira, but we were happy to be there as it has a nice little seawall to walk around and lots of cafes to try out. And the first one was Dun Cafe. Brunch here costs €6, super cheap, veggie brunch, a bit of halloumi in there, unbelievable eggs. You've got to try that one. Istanbul Moda area. Let's give this coffee a good old taste. Lovely. Then we walked along the boardwalk, but it's quite foggy on this day, and it's time for another coffee after a 30-minute walk to Crikey, which is another trendy cafe with great coffee. Let's hear more. Real modern look, love it. Let's get to the coffee here. Fill the coffee. Normally a change for this podcast, but look forward to trying it. Let's give it a go. Yeah, super light that is. Tastes very good actually, and that's easily a very light coffee. Once we were done, we walked through the marketplace with the intention to get back via boat across the old town, but once we got there we discovered that all ferries were cancelled due to the fog, so we walked to the nearest metro and made it back in the end. Entering the last day in Turkey was a bit of a rest day for me, as I had a podcast interview to record. However, I did manage to make it out to visit a couple of cafes. First was the Art Cafe for coffee and brunch. Bit of an expensive sandwich, but the server spoke English and used to live in London, so we had a good old chat. Great art in this cafe, as you would imagine. Istanbul North Art Cafe. Long black. Same thing. Let's give it a try. Yeah, oh, that's lovely. Quite light. Ooh, for a couple of euros, not bad. And then we went to the Rabbit Hole Cafe, bit quirky, bit trendy, bit colourful, trippy if you like, but enjoy the coffee and the free snacks. In the evening, we both went back out to Three Partners Cafe for another round of baklava. Next morning was a taxi to the hotel, and we're both parting ways as Emma makes her way to Greece. and I make my way to Beirut in Lebanon. My conclusion for this trip is that 1 week in Turkey isn't enough. I did feel that 2 nights in Ankara and 3 nights in Cappadocia was enough, but I could have easily spent more time in Istanbul, and I would love to visit more regions throughout the country. Thank you for watching, and join me next week as I'll be heading on my solo journey to Lebanon. Cheers. Please follow and subscribe on my YouTube channel today, and please rate and review the podcast on any podcast platform that you use. Thank you.